I always knew my parents favored my twin sister, but I tried to ignore it, told myself I was imagining things, that all siblings had a bit of rivalry. But deep down, I knew the truth. Ava, my twin, was born 12 minutes before me, and in those 12 minutes, she somehow became their entire world. The miracle baby, the golden child. Meanwhile, I was just there. It started small. In kindergarten, we were both in the school play. I had the lead role as Little Red Riding Hood, while Ava was a flower with 2 lines. She forgot them and burst into tears on stage. My parents? They didn't even see my performance. They were too busy comforting Ava. That night at home, they only talked about how brave she was for trying. My big moment didn't exist. This kept happening. In elementary school, if Ava got a C on a test, they'd tell her, "You tried your best, sweetie." If I got an A, "Don't brag, it's not nice." I learned to stop telling them about my grades. It didn't matter anyway. I once spent months on a science project about renewable energy, even interviewing an environmental specialist. I won first place. My parents barely glanced at my ribbon before telling me how Ava had a rough volleyball practice that day. By middle school, I understood the rules. Ava got their attention, and I got their silence, but I refused to let it break me. Instead, I pushed myself harder. I joined every club I could, studied until 2 a.m., and aced every exam. If they wouldn't love me, at least I could earn their respect. It didn't work. Ava barely scraped by in school, skipped studying for parties, and still got all their attention. She was the fun one, the social one. Meanwhile, I was the too serious one, the one who needed to lighten up. In high school, the gap between us became impossible to ignore. I was valedictorian, got a full scholarship to a top university, and was even interviewed by a local newspaper. Ava barely graduated and had to settle for community college. But at our graduation party, my parents spent the whole time comforting her because she didn't get into her dream school. By the time I left for college, I had given up on ever being enough for them, but a small part of me still hoped. I studied harder, worked part-time jobs, and kept waiting for them to notice, to be proud of me. Then, at Thanksgiving dinner during my junior year, my drunk uncle let something slip. My parents had never wanted twins. I was the unwanted surprise. Suddenly, everything made sense. The years of being ignored, the blatant favoritism, the way they dismissed my achievements, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't my imagination. I was never supposed to exist in their plans. That night, I stopped trying. I focused on myself, on building my own life. I graduated at the top of my class, landed multiple job offers, and took a role at a promising startup. 3 years later, I was promoted to senior developer. Meanwhile, Ava dropped out of college, met a wealthy guy at a bar, and was now planning the kind of wedding you see in magazines. My parents were obsessed with it, spending hours on calls with her, gushing about the dress, the venue, the guest list. They couldn't even remember the name of my company. Then came the final betrayal. Our grandmother, the only person who ever treated us equally, had left us both a sizable inheritance. She made it clear the money was to be split evenly, meant for our future weddings. It was supposed to be something just for me, something they couldn't take away. But they did. Ava wanted a celebrity photographer, a designer dress, multiple venues. Instead of telling her to cut back or asking her wealthy fiancé to help, my parents stole my share of the inheritance. They never asked, never even mentioned it. I only found out months later when my drunk uncle let it slip at another family gathering. I confronted them. My mother waved it off like it was nothing. "Oh, honey, we were going to tell you eventually. We'll pay you back when we can." My father was worse. Ava needed it more. "She's getting married. You're so focused on work you probably won't even have a wedding." I stood there, staring at them, feeling nothing. No rage, no sadness, just emptiness. They weren't even ashamed. They genuinely believed they had done nothing wrong. That night, I made the easiest decision of my life. I was done. I went home, opened my laptop, and wrote the email that would change everything. "I know about the wedding fund. I know you took my inheritance without asking, but this isn't just about the money, it's about how you've treated me my whole life. I was never the daughter you wanted, and I'm done trying to be. Do not contact me again, unless it's to return what you stole." Then I blocked their numbers, deleted them from social media, and cut them out of my life. For the first time in years, I felt free. I focused on my job, my happiness, my own success. Within a year, my stock options were worth more than Ava's entire wedding. I bought a house in a prime part of the city, started therapy, built a life filled with people who actually cared about me. And I never looked back. At least, not until my phone rang 2 years later, with a call that would change everything. 2 years had passed since I cut them off. 2 years of peace, success, and freedom. I had built a life where I was finally in control, where I no longer felt like I was competing for love I would never receive. Then my phone rang. I was in the middle of a team meeting when I saw the name flash across my screen, Uncle Greg. He rarely called, and when he did, it was never good news. I hesitated before answering, my gut already warning me that whatever he had to say wasn't something I wanted to hear. "Hey, it's Uncle Greg," he started, his voice unusually shaky. "Listen, I need to talk to you about your parents." My stomach tightened. What about them? They were in an accident. He took a deep breath. A truck ran a red light and hit them. Your dad's in critical condition, and your mom has multiple fractures. They're in the hospital. I felt nothing. No panic. No immediate urge to drop everything and rush to their side. Just a numb, quiet understanding that the past had finally caught up with them. "Why are you telling me this now?" My voice was steady, but inside I was bracing myself. He hesitated. They didn't want you to know at first, but it's been a few days, and the situation is bad. Their insurance lapsed 6 months ago, and the hospital bills are piling up. And there it was, the real reason he called. I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of it sink in. After 2 years of silence, they suddenly needed me because I had money. I already knew how this conversation would go. They wouldn't apologize, wouldn't admit to anything. They'd just expect me to fix their mess, like I always had to clean up after AVA's tantrums, her mistakes, her failures. Greg sighed. "I know things haven't been easy between you guys, but they're your parents, and they need help." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath before answering. "Where's Ava?" Another long pause. "She visited once, right after the accident, but she says she can't help with the bills. Doesn't want to ask her husband for money so soon after their honeymoon." I laughed. I actually laughed. Of course, Ava wasn't going to help. Of course, she had an excuse. When it came to getting everything handed to her, she was front and center. But when it came to responsibility, nowhere to be found. Greg kept talking, trying to guilt me into caring, but I barely heard him. I was already lost in thought. 2 years. 2 whole years. And not once had my parents reached out to me. Not to check if I was okay. Not to say they missed me. Nothing. And now, the first time they did, it was about money. I sighed. "Greg, I appreciate you calling, but I don't think there's anything I can do." "They're your family," he said, his voice thick with disappointment. I tightened my grip on the phone. Were they my family when they stole my inheritance? When they spent my entire life treating me like I didn't matter? Were they my family then? Silence. Then finally he muttered, "I just thought you should know," and hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at my screen. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't the little girl desperate for their approval anymore. I had built a life without them, and I wasn't about to throw that away now. But the calls didn't stop. Ava texted me next. "Ava, I know you're doing well. Mom and Dad are in a really bad spot. This is your chance to do the right thing." The right thing. The same sister who had no problem stealing my wedding fund was now talking about morality. The irony was almost laughable. I ignored her. Then, a week later, my mother called. For a brief moment, I considered answering. I wondered if, maybe this time, she'd say something different, something real. But when I picked up, the first words out of her mouth were, "Sweetheart, we're in trouble." Not "I'm sorry," not "I miss you," not "I regret what we did," just a demand. I waited, let her talk. She went on about how dire things were, how they might lose their home, how medical costs were rising. Then, she said it, "We know we made mistakes, but you can't turn your back on family." That word again, family. I closed my eyes, feeling an anger so deep it almost surprised me. I had spent my entire life being overlooked, used, and cast aside. Now, they needed me. And they had the audacity to call me selfish? I took a deep breath. And then, calmly, I said the words I had wanted to say for years. "No." A stunned silence filled the line. "No?" she repeated, as if she couldn't comprehend it. "No," I said again, firmer this time. "You don't get to throw me away and then expect me to save you. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not Ava's shadow. And I'm not your personal bank account." She gasped. "How can you be so heartless?" I almost laughed. "Heartless? You made it clear my whole life that Ava was the only child who mattered. You stole from me. You ignored my successes. You didn't even call me for 2 years. And now, you only reach out because you need money. That's not fair," she whispered. "Neither was stealing my inheritance," I shot back. "Neither was choosing Ava over me every single time." Tears. The same manipulative tears I had seen 1,000 times before. I didn't budge. "You made your choice a long time ago," I said. "Now I'm making mine." And with that, I hung up. I blocked her number, blocked Ava's, blocked Greg's too. For days, the guilt tried to creep in. The little voice in my head whispered, "Maybe you should help them. Maybe this time, they'll change." But I knew better. They didn't want me. They wanted what I could do for them. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't giving them anything. Not my time, not my energy, and definitely not my money. I had finally chosen myself, and it felt damn good. Days passed, and I thought that was the end of it. I had said my piece, cut them off again, and moved on. But, of course, it was never that simple. My phone buzzed one afternoon while I was in the middle of reviewing a new project proposal. It was an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I picked up. The voice on the other end made my stomach tighten. "You've made your point," my father said, his tone sharp but controlled. "Now, let's be reasonable." I nearly laughed. Reasonable? Now, after years of being ignored, dismissed, and used, he wanted to have a rational discussion. "There's nothing to discuss," I said flatly. He sighed, like I was the one being difficult. "Your mother and I are in a tough situation. This is about family, about stepping up when you're needed." That word again. Family. The same excuse they always used when they needed something. "Ava should step up, then," he scoffed. "Ava has a family to take care of." I clenched my jaw. "And I don't? You're single, no kids. You can afford to help." I took a slow breath, forcing down the anger building in my chest. I built my life from nothing. You don't get to act like I owe you just because I was smart enough to succeed while Ava coasted. There was silence on the line. Then, his voice dropped to something cold. "You're going to regret this." I almost smiled. "No, Dad. I regret ever trying to make you love me." Then I hung up. That should have been the end. But desperation makes people do stupid things. A week later, I came home to find someone standing outside my apartment building. At first, I thought it was a stranger. Then she turned, and my stomach dropped. Ava, dressed in an expensive coat, holding a designer bag. She looked every bit the spoiled, pampered trophy wife she had become. I sighed. "What do you want?" She smiled, all fake warmth. "Can't a sister visit without an agenda?" I gave her a look. She rolled her eyes and sighed dramatically. "Fine. I came to talk. Can we go inside?" "Absolutely not." She frowned. "You're being ridiculous. Mom and Dad are struggling. They might lose everything. And for what? Some grudge? Grudge. That was how she saw it. Not years of neglect, not theft. Just a petty grudge. I folded my arms. They made their choice. So did I. Ava's expression twisted. "You've changed." "Yes." I stopped letting people walk all over me. She exhaled, like this was exhausting for her. "Look, you're rich now. Helping them wouldn't even hurt you. It's not like you can't afford it." I stared at her. "You took my inheritance. You stole my future wedding fund without hesitation. And now, you want me to save them?" She had the nerve to look offended. "That was different." Of course it was. I gave a dry laugh. "It's always different when it benefits you." Ava crossed her arms, frustration creeping into her voice. "This isn't just about you. They're our parents." "No," I corrected. "They were your parents. They just tolerated me." She flinched, and for a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe. But just as quickly, she buried it. "They need you." I tilted my head. "Where's your husband? The one with all the money? Why can't he help?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "He doesn't think we should enable their bad financial habits." I laughed outright. "So now you understand boundaries? Convenient." Ava's face flushed. "You're being cruel." "No, Ava. Cruel is stealing from someone and expecting them to still clean up your mess." Cruel is only remembering I exist when you need something. She glared at me. You'll regret this. I met her eyes. No, you will. Then I turned and walked inside, leaving her standing there in the cold. I thought that was the last of it. I thought they'd finally understand that I was done. But I underestimated just how entitled they were, because the next morning, I got a call from my bank. Someone had tried to access my accounts. My blood ran cold. Who? The representative hesitated. The request came from someone claiming to be a family member. We flagged it as suspicious and locked everything down. You should check your security settings. I knew before they even said it. I knew exactly who it was. My parents. I spent the next few hours locking down every financial account I had. New passwords, two-factor authentication. I even called my lawyer to make sure nothing could be accessed without my consent. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I filed a fraud report. And when the investigator asked if I wanted to press charges if it came down to it, I didn't hesitate. Yes, this time there were going to be consequences. I wasn't the weak little girl they could manipulate anymore. This time, they were going to learn the hard way. Filing the fraud report should have been the final step, the last boundary drawn between me and them. But I should have known people like my parents and Ava never accept consequences. They just find new ways to manipulate. 2 days later, my lawyer called. They've been trying to open credit cards in your name, he said, frustration clear in his voice. We've stopped them, but you should know this isn't going to end easily. I gripped my phone, my jaw tightening. How bad is it? They've attempted multiple accounts. If they succeed even once, it could damage your credit. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. Of course, this was their next move. First, they begged. Then, they demanded. And now, they were stealing. Again, what are my options? I asked, already knowing I wasn't going to let them get away with this. We can move forward with pressing charges. That would send a clear message. A clear message. That's what I needed. Do it, I said without hesitation. They don't get to ruin my life just because they ruined their own. He sighed. I figured you'd say that. I'll handle it. After the call, I sat in my apartment staring at the city skyline. A younger version of me, one desperate for their love, would have hesitated, would have worried about how this would affect them. But that girl was gone. The calm before the storm. For the next few days, things were quiet. Almost too quiet. I knew my parents must have realized by now that I had escalated things. That, this time, I wasn't just walking away, I was fighting back. Then, Ava showed up again. I had just gotten home from work when the doorman called. Miss, there's a woman downstairs insisting she needs to speak with you. Says she's your sister. I sighed. Tell her to leave. A pause. Then, she's refusing. I ran a hand down my face. Of course she was. Ava never took no for an answer. Fine, I muttered. I'll come down. When I stepped outside, Ava was pacing, her arms crossed over her designer coat. The moment she saw me, she marched forward, heels clicking against the pavement. What the hell is wrong with you? She hissed. I raised an eyebrow. You're going to have to be more specific. You filed charges against our parents. I folded my arms. I did. She gaped at me. Are you seriously going to have them arrested? If that's what it takes, I said, my voice steady. Ava let out a humorless laugh. God, you're insane. No, Ava, I'm done being your safety net. Her expression twisted. They were desperate. You could have just helped them. I scoffed. You mean you could have helped them? But instead, you came running to me because it's easier than telling your rich husband the truth. Her face burned red. That's not. It is, I cut in. You and I both know it. For a moment, she just stood there, shaking her head. You're going to regret this, she said. Finally, voice low. I tilted my head. Funny. That's exactly what I told you when you stole my inheritance. She flinched. And for the first time, I saw something in her eyes that wasn't arrogance. It was fear. Because she knew this time, I wasn't bluffing. Without another word, I turned and walked back inside. 2 weeks passed. The fraud investigation was in full swing, and my parents were drowning. Their accounts were frozen. The bank flagged them for suspicious activity. The house, the one they had fought so hard to keep, was at risk. And then, the final blow came. My lawyer called again. They've been served, he said. They're officially under investigation for financial fraud. I let out a breath. Good. Not so good for them, he added. They'll be facing real consequences. The kind they can't talk their way out of. I nodded, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just a quiet certainty that this was necessary. That night, I got one last call. It was my mother. I stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. A part of me wanted to ignore it, to let it ring, but another part, one that wanted to hear the final act play out, picked up. Her voice was weak. "You've destroyed us." I didn't respond. She sniffled. "We're losing everything. The house, the savings. Your father is sick, and now he's stressed beyond belief." I stayed silent. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this to your own family?" That word again. Family. I closed my eyes. When I spoke, my voice was calm. "I didn't do this to you. You did this to yourselves." A shaky breath. "We just needed help." "No," I corrected. "You needed a scapegoat. You needed someone to bail you out like always." Silence. Then, in the smallest voice, she asked, "Is this really it?" I let out a slow breath. "Yeah, Mom, it is." For once, she didn't try to argue. She didn't try to guilt me. Maybe, finally, she understood. I hung up. Then, I blocked her number. For the last time. Ava tried one more time to reach me. She sent a text. "Mom's been crying every night because of you." I stared at it for a long moment before replying. She had years to cry over how she treated me. I don't care anymore. Then, I blocked her too. The finality of it felt like exhaling after holding my breath for years. I had spent my whole life fighting for a place in a family that never wanted me. I had begged, worked, and sacrificed only to be tossed aside whenever it suited them. Not anymore. I wasn't the forgotten daughter, the backup plan, the easy target. I was free, and I wasn't looking back. Cutting them off was supposed to be the end. No more calls, no more guilt trips, no more being the disposable daughter. But life has a way of testing your resolve, just to see if you really mean it. A month passed in silence. No messages, no surprise visits. I had started to believe, for the first time, that they finally got the message. That maybe, just maybe, I was free. Then I got the email. It came from an unfamiliar address, but I knew exactly who it was from before I even opened it. The subject line made my stomach tighten. "I hope you're happy now." I exhaled slowly before clicking it. "You got what you wanted. Mom is sick from all the stress. Dad barely speaks anymore. The house is gone. Everything they worked for, everything that should have been ours, is gone. Because of you. You're selfish. You're cruel. I don't even recognize you anymore. But don't worry. You'll regret this someday. You'll look back and realize you abandoned the only people who ever truly cared about you. I hope your money keeps you warm at night. Ava." I stared at the words, feeling nothing but exhaustion. There it was. The same manipulation, the same rewriting of history. In Ava's mind, I had destroyed everything, not their choices, not their entitlement, not their own selfishness. No, it was all my fault. I closed the email. I didn't respond. I wasn't playing this game anymore. After that, something shifted. It was like a weight I hadn't realized. I was still carrying finally lifted. I had spent so much of my life waiting for the next betrayal, the next disappointment, the next blow. But there was nothing left for them to take from me. I had won, not in the way they would understand. Not with money or success or spite. I had won because I left and I wasn't looking back. So I focused on my future. I accepted the promotion I had been hesitating over, the one that would relocate me to a new city, a new start. I put my apartment up for sale and found a stunning penthouse in a place where no one knew me as the forgotten daughter, the second choice. For the first time, I wasn't making decisions based on them. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just living, and it felt incredible. 2 weeks before my move, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but at the last second, I picked up. "Hello?" A pause. Then a voice I hadn't heard in years. Grandma's lawyer. I sat up straighter. "Excuse me? I'm sorry to contact you like this, but there's something you need to know. Your grandmother left behind another account, a trust fund, one your parents didn't have access to." I blinked. "What?" "She wanted to make sure you had something of your own," he continued. "She must have suspected what would happen." A lump formed in my throat. All those years, I thought my grandmother had done her best to protect me, but even she must have known deep down that my parents would try to take everything, so she had planned for it. How much are we talking? I asked, my voice quiet. He told me. I let out a slow breath. It wasn't an amount that would change my life. I was already financially secure, but it was enough to make a difference. Enough to be meaningful. Enough to be proof that someone had always believed I mattered. What do you want to do with it? He asked. I didn't hesitate. Transfer it into my new account. Somewhere they can't ever touch it. A beat of silence. Then understood. I never told my family about the trust fund. I imagined their reaction, the outrage, the disbelief, the accusations, but it didn't matter anymore. They weren't part of my world. On the day of my move, I stood in my empty apartment, looking around one last time. This was the place where I had rebuilt myself. The place where I had finally put years of hurt behind me. I picked up my bags, walked out, and never looked back. Moving to a new city was the best decision I ever made. It wasn't just a change of location, it was a clean slate, a final break from everything that had held me down for so long. For the first time, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next betrayal. I wasn't checking my phone, bracing for another guilt trip. I wasn't living in the shadow of people who had never truly seen me. I was free. It didn't take long for me to settle in. My new job challenged me in ways I had always craved. My team respected me for my work, not for what I could do for them. The friends I made here, they weren't tied to some old obligation or expectation. They chose me because they wanted me in their lives. And that made all the difference. One night, I was out with my closest friend from work, Lena, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who never sugarcoated anything. We were having drinks at a rooftop bar overlooking the city lights when she turned to me with a smirk. "You've changed," she said, swirling her glass. "When I met you, you were all business, always looking over your shoulder, like you were waiting for something to go wrong." I raised a brow. "And now? Now, you actually look like you want to be here." I thought about that. About how, for so long, I had existed in survival mode, always bracing for impact. Now, I wasn't just surviving, I was living, and I wasn't wasting a second of it. My family tried reaching out a few more times. Ava sent a few passive-aggressive texts, but I ignored them. My parents? I heard through distant relatives that they had hit rock bottom, lost their house, drained their savings, and had to move into a small rental. Did I feel bad? Maybe, but not enough to let them back in. They had made their choices. Now they had to live with them. One day, I got a message from an unknown number. "Dad, we miss you. Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. No anger, no sadness, just certainty. They didn't miss me. They missed what I could do for them, and I was done being their backup plan. A year after moving, I stood in my new apartment, a sleek, modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the skyline. This wasn't just a home. It was proof that I had made it, that I had won. Not in the way my family would measure success, not with money or power. I had won because I had taken my life back. I had stopped chasing their love, stopped waiting for them to change, stopped measuring my worth by people who never truly saw me. For the first time, I was living for me, and it felt damn good. I never spoke to my parents again. Ava and I remained strangers, and I never regretted it. Because sometimes, the best thing you can do, the bravest thing, is to walk away and never look back. Story 2. My father preferred my younger brother above me. So I quit after 15 years of hard work, causing financial difficulties and disarray in the firm. Hi there, everyone. I need your assistance before we start the video for today. One of the finest things you can do to help us with the channel's declining popularity is to subscribe. It's easy, cost-free, and enables us to keep providing you with amazing content. Your assistance is crucial. Together, let's continue to expand this channel. Many thanks. Let's start the video now. Hi Reddit, I'm a new poster and a longtime lurker. Before I went insane, I needed to get this off my chest. The Tolder R is at the bottom if you don't want to read my son's story. I am a 34-year-old man who has spent 15 years working for Taylor and Sons Plumbing, my father's plumbing company. My younger brother Matt and I are intended to be the subject of the son part. It's more like Taylor and his favorite kid, and the other one, who does all the labor. But it's 31M. About 30 years ago, my father started this business, a quintessential tale of tiny company. We began with only him in a van, and today I run one of the biggest plumbing businesses in our area with 15 plumbers and 3 office staff. And when I say that The majority of that development happened after I joined. I'm not being conceited. I studied business management for 4 years in college after high school, eventually receiving a degree. My brother Matt, however, took 6 years to finish a 2-year degree at a community college and hardly completed high school. He was exploring the local bar scene and sharing gym selfies while I was studying. I went back home after college to work for my family's company, which placed a strong emphasis on starting from scratch. I thus worked as a plumber's helper for 3 years, clearing out toilets, crawling under houses, and handling people's bodily needs. All right, in any case, I understand. If you don't know what plumbers do, you can't manage them. I gained my master plumber's license, which is a huge pain in the ass, worked my way up, learned how to schedule inventory, and all the other tedious but necessary things that keep a business going. For years, I put in 60-hour work weeks. Due to emergency calls, I missed my friends' weddings and went almost 5 years without dating. Who has time? Then, at last, I succeeded. About 5 years ago, I was promoted to operations manager. I started putting all of the processes I had planned into place, including follow-up calls, digital scheduling, improved inventory management, and task tracking. We saw an increase in reviews from 3.5 to 4.8 stars. In just 2 years, revenue grew by 40%. For once, Dad seemed truly impressed. Then Matt appears. My brother had been alternating between becoming a bartender and trying to figure himself out up until this point. All of a sudden, he makes the decision to work for the family company. Remember, this man has never shown any interest in plumbing. I am unable to distinguish between copper and PVC pipes. A trap, I believe, is a device used to capture animals. However, Dad is ecstatic. Finally, his golden boy has entered the family's tradition, and everything goes to hell at this point. Dad gives Matt a salary that is 80% of mine, along with a fictitious title, such as Director of Client Relations. Matt gets given an office with a window, even though I've been there for 10 more. I'm still in the closet that was converted and next to the bathroom, though. What does he do? Bringing customers to lunch. In addition to publishing on social media, we periodically visit construction sites to take pictures of our plumbers at work. He always makes sure to be in the picture as if he is supervising. He leaves at 4 p.m. after arriving at roughly 10 a.m. and taking 2-hour lunch breaks because of traffic, each staff meeting, while utterly ignoring the fact that I recently improved our whole billing system and saved us $50. Annually. Dad gives Matt kudos for landing a little contract. I seem to be invisible. On one occasion, I spent weeks preparing a bid for the biggest contract we had ever chased, a huge commercial project. I am referring to proposals that are thick as binder. On the day of the meeting, I even stayed up late to finish it. Dad takes Matt with him. Matt hadn't even perused the proposal's pages. Hangovered, Matt kept running to the restroom. According to Matt, the client's building is that large location with the sign. Because my calculations were good, we were still given the contract throughout the meeting. Dad was raving about Matt's relationship with their crew and how his people skills made the difference for the journey back. Dad said that my attention to detail was useful and beneficial, as if I were the office assistant. That was my contribution. I attempt to talk to her about it, but moms know better. You and your brother are just different kinds of people, she continues, with a sorrowful expression on her face. You're more organized than most people can be, as though being competent were a flaw in one's character. The last straw. I heard Dad talking to Matt in his office one day. The door wasn't shut all the way. Dad brought up succession planning. My name was not mentioned when you took over the business, and asked Matt if he wanted to know about the finances. Not once. Not even. Your brother might be able to assist you with the bookkeeping or anything. The business I helped start. The business to which I have devoted my adult life. Furthermore, I am not even seen as a potential owner. Only the workaholic who keeps things running while Matt is the center of attention. I'm keeping my head down. I completed the task with my head down. I couldn't really do anything about it. Then our administrative helper left around 9 months ago. After 5 years with us, she got a better offer somewhere else. We were growing, so Dad stated we needed to recruit someone with more office management expertise. And Julie is 29 degrees Fahrenheit. As soon as she entered the room for her interview, I felt a connection. She walked with assurance, Her emerald eyes seemed to see through all the fake corporate bullshit, and her dark hair was always styled in a flawless bun. She wasn't the kind of Instagram model Matt usually works with, but she was gorgeous in a sophisticated, well-groomed way. Her resume, amazingly impressive. Degree in business. Expertise running offices for companies much bigger than ours. Numerous certifications in business operations, software, and accounting are available. Dad was ecstatic and immediately hired her, something he never does. Everything is altered by Julie. What about her first week? Our filing system, which hadn't been updated since the 1990s, was completely reorganized by her. Is this week too for her? She discovered $20,000 in unpaid invoices from the previous year and collected it. Is this her third week? She confronted my father about our antiquated scheduling system and persuaded him to invest in the software I had been yearning for years. I was essentially in love. We started having lunch together in the break room. We initially discussed only work-related topics. Then we realized we both enjoyed the same true crime podcasts. Then I discovered she enjoys hiking, which I do as well. Then there were movies, novels, and all that. It was so simple to chat to her. Unlike those awful Tinder dates where you're trying to think of anything to say, asking her out after a few months of the lunch thing, I finally got the nerve to ask her out for real dinner on Friday night at that new Thai restaurant downtown. Not the break room with our sad Tupperware meals. She agreed right away, smiling in a way that made me feel like I wasn't simply the family doormat. We scheduled it for the following Friday. I was ridiculously excited. I even caught myself whistling while fixing a sink on one job site, which completely confused the apprentice working with me. I did not inform anyone at work about our date arrangements. My family has a specific gift for spoiling anything nice that occurs to me, so I decided to remain silent until things got serious. A big mistake. The gut punch. 2 days before our date, I was returning from work when I heard Julie giggling in the hallway. That genuine chuckle was something I had worked hard for weeks to obtain. But she was not laughing at what I said. She was chuckling about something that said, as I approached the corner, I noticed them standing far too close together at the coffee machine. Matt was performing his famous lean against the wall. Look how cool I am posture. He was showing her something on his phone, and she was genuinely interested in whatever rubbish he was spewing. Hey Ryan, Matt said as he noticed me using that false brotherly tone he saves for when other people are present. Just showing Julie those kayaking pics from last weekend. Kayaking. Matthew, the person who complains about having to walk from his car to a restaurant while it's pouring. The person who once asked me if the river near our house featured those fish things. Since when does he freaking kayak? Julie smiled at me, but it was not the same grin. It was simply courteous, professional, the kind you give to a coworker, not the person you're going to go on a date with. My stomach dropped. They're great images, Julie remarked, returning her focus to Matt. I've always wanted to try kayaking, but never got the chance. You should come with me sometime, Matt said, flashing that dumb smile that usually works with females. I go most weekends when the weather's favorable, very serene out on the river. Let me tell you, this guy has never kayaked in his life. Drinking beer on someone else's boat is the closest he's ever been to a water activity. But Mr. Outdoorsy showed from out of nowhere. That would be great, said Julie, and she meant it. I knew. She looked over at me. Ryan, I had no idea your brother enjoyed being outside so much. I didn't either, I muttered, but they soon resumed looking through his phone, which I'm sure included pictures he had discovered online or stock photos of boats. Julie discovered me by myself in the break room the following day. I pondered whether the crazy encounter was for nothing, and my heart skipped a beat. She mentioned it would be around Friday, and I knew precisely what that meant. I apologize, but I have to postpone. Something arose. The global code for something showed up. I discovered a better deal. And my brother definitely struck a better bargain in this instance. No problem, I said, trying to seem casual. Perhaps at a later day. Of course. She smiled as she spoke. A smile that stopped short of her eyes. There is seldom a grin that says this. Later, I learned through a rumor at the office that Julie and Matt had gone on their first date on Friday, the day she was scheduled to join me at the Thai restaurant I had planned to take her to. The following week was agony. As though he had won the jackpot, Matt bounded around the office. Every time he walked by Julie's desk, she blushed. The murmured conversations stopped when I walked in. During the staff meeting, Matt casually brought up their date. I felt like a piece of trash, as if it had never been mine in the first place. Matt always jumps in and takes over when I try to build something for myself. Naturally, the situation worsened. Mom was immediately aware of it as Matt tells her everything. Over the weekend, she called, ecstatic. Have you met Matthew's new girlfriend, Julie? He claims that she is simply amazing, very successful, and attractive. She is employed at your workplace. She is the manager of our office. I gave a direct response. Isn't it great then? She's very smart, Matthew remarks, organized as well. She and Matthew seem to have a lot in common. Other than maybe sharing a planet, they have nothing in common. They are soulmates though, Mom. I finally lost it. In fact, Julie, Mom, and I were meant to go first. She accepted my invitation to go out, but Matt intervened. There was a long silence. I could just hear Mom attempting to process this information without making her dear. Matthew seemed bad. You know how these things work, my dear. Sometimes individuals simply click. With women, Matthew has always been very endearing. You're more, work-oriented. Really? That is not appreciated by everyone, as they ought to. In essence, she commented that Matt is entertaining and attractive. You're uninteresting. Take care of it. The new power couple. And it started like that. The new power couple in plumbing are Matt and Julie Taylor and their boys. The saddest part, though, was that Julie wasn't even lost. It was seeing her slowly come to terms with Matt's true identity, while feigning ignorance. She had to cover for him once when he was supposed to attend a networking event, but was too drunk to show up, and the cracks start to show that he canceled plans with her for the first time because his friends invited him to a last-minute poker game the day she overheard him lying or inflating his role in the company to a client. Her confusion and mental acrobatics as she tried to make sense of the match she believed she was dating and the actual Matt were visible to me. But by then, they were formally established, and she was already too deeply involved. The wagons are circled by my family. 3 weeks after they started dating, Julie received an invitation from Mom to Sunday dinner. As if the pain of our monthly family meals wasn't enough, she said, "It'll be nice to have a fresh face," particularly because I had chosen my brother above me due to my work-related obsession. Dad made it plain that supper was mandatory, so I nearly skipped it. Family supper is just that family meal. Be there, Ryan, hellish supper. I went, and it was exactly what you would have feared. Mom prepared a delicious roast, going all out with her finest china. Matt sounded like a business whiz thanks to Dad's job anecdotes. Pulling Julie's chair out, refilling her water glass, and repeating completely made-up stories about his crazy weekends and charity work were all part of Matt's perfect son-lover routine. While I sat there knowing that Matt's closest encounter with outdoor adventure was having to park at the far end of the mall parking lot, Julie soaked it all up, laughing at Matt's jokes and asking him about his made-up hiking trips. I tried to participate in the discussion. To let him know what he wrecked, I'd tell him about the hiking path Julie and I had spoken about during our lunches in the break room. "Oh, I just heard about that place from Matt." Julie turned excitedly to him and sobbed. "Have you also been there? Have you been there?" Matt chuckled as he asked. "In the summer, I almost live on the route." Yes, all of a sudden he is Bear Grylls. 6 months ago, I received the promotion I deserved for that dinner. Since then, they have been formally dating. In any case, I tried to adapt and concentrate on myself. I'm hoping for a better situation. I convinced myself that what slipped through my fingers didn't really matter. I had no doubt that amazing things would occur. A month or so after that meal, after killing myself for this company for 15 years, I was finally promoted to senior operations manager. This was supposed to be significant, greater accountability, higher compensation. Above all, the company vehicle. Just a brand new Ford F-250 with plenty of towing capacity to deliver equipment to construction sites. Nothing special. The nearly worthwhile announcement. During our monthly staff meeting, Dad made a significant announcement. Ryan is getting promoted to senior operations manager after years of hard work. We recently bought a new company truck, which comes with a nice raise. Son, you deserve it. I felt for the first time that my efforts were being appreciated. I even gave myself permission to get excited about owning a fantastic car for the first time in my life, rather than my rusted-out Chevy, which is kept together by prayers and duct tape. Sunday dinner followed. Let's fast forward to Sunday dinner. Mom is cooking her famous pot roast. Dad is discussing a customer. As usual, Matt has put his arm around Julie. All I want is to finish the lunch without saying anything I'll later regret. Dad then puts down his fork and clears his throat. I must make an announcement, the man says. Announcements are never good news in my family, so I instantly get tighter. Matt and Julie share this glance, and I know what's next. The bombshell. We're engaged. Julie announces, holding out her left hand with this huge diamond ring, which likely cost more than my annual income. Mom breaks into joyous tears. Dad begins clapping Matt on the back. I'm sitting there in shock. The fork had frozen halfway to my mouth. This is wonderful news, Dad exclaims. My boy's finally settling down, starting a family. Then he drops the actual bomb. The ultimate betrayal. Matt, I think you and your future bride could use that new truck more than the company could. Consider it an engagement present. You'll need a good family vehicle now. Matt adopts a false, startled look, as if this hadn't been his intention all along. Wow, Dad, that's really generous. I finally discovered my voice. Dad, that truck is supposed to be part of my promotion package. I need it for work, for serious corporate activity. Dad waved his hand dismissively. Now, Ryan, don't be selfish. Your brother's establishing a family. Family comes first. You may keep using your old truck for now. It still runs, doesn't it? Barely, I said, but no one was listening. They were all busy applauding the happy couple, talking wedding plans and future grandkids. The last straw. That was it. The last straw. The instant I understood, I was done with this family company. Garbage, forever wrath was building up. I was furious. Nevertheless, I managed to make it home in my piece of junk vehicle, which made the unsettling rattling noise the whole way to highlight the fact that it was nearing the end of its life. The time was ideal. After 15 years, I came home and completely lost it. 15 years. 15 years of commitment, effort, and sacrifice. After 15 years of watching Matt succeed in life through charm and my father's love, I created something valuable and lucrative that was allegedly just handed off to my brother and, more recently, Julie. Matt was given the only good thing that had happened to me in years, on a silver platter, along with a company vehicle and an engagement ring. I doubt I've ever been this furious in my life. Even the heat wasn't higher, explosive. Everything became crystal clear all of a sudden because of this icy, controlled rage. This family was never going to appreciate me. What I deserved would never come to me. All the limelight went to Golden Boy, and I was just the workhorse, the reliable one they could rely on, the email that made all the difference. Reaching for my laptop, I checked my email. I spent around 10 seconds staring at the blank Compose window. I then began typing. I now resign. I am leaving Taylor & Sons Plumbing, Dad, with immediate effect. Think of this as my 2-week notice. Although, in all honesty, you'll be lucky if I survive the week. I'm going to look at other choices. Regards. Not at all, Taylor Ryan. Before I could retreat, I shoved sand. I then sent a follow-up email regarding my accrued vacation time to our HR representative, who is basically the bookkeeper that manages payroll. I told them I will begin taking it right away. I didn't plan on going back to the workplace. The consequences start to occur. My phone started to balloon up in a matter of minutes. Dad is calling. Matt just texted, "What the hell?" and dumb emojis. Mom's voicemails were filled with tears, complaining that I was being too theatrical and destroying the family. Then Julie gave a call. That call ended up in voicemail. It's Julie. Ryan. I heard from your dad that you quit. What's happening? Give me a call back, please. As though she was unaware, as though she hadn't been involved in the whole catastrophe, I ignored them all. After hanging up, I started revising my resume. I was done. My role as the family's workhorse is over. I'm sick of working myself to death for meager attention, while Matt gets whatever he wants. To 7 a.m. The next day, the confrontation date showed up to my flat. He banged on the door like he was trying to pry it open. "Ryan, what the devil?" When I opened it at last, he shouted, "I'm still in my jammies and not ready for this confrontation. I'm giving up. Email. Following everything that this family has done for you." To be honest, I chuckled at his expression. Done for me? You mean that for 15 years I've been paid less than the going rate, but Matt gets bonuses just for turning up for work? Or how about promoting me with a business car and then giving it to Matt as a gift for our engagement? The justifications. That's not the same, Dad said, red in the face. Matt is establishing a family. He needs our help. I also don't. For years, I have been providing for this whole family. While Matt is abroad taking 2-hour lunches and posting on Instagram, who do you think manages the company? Dad's face flushed even more. Don't say such things about your brother. Matt attracts customers. He is the face of the business. I am too. What? The workhorse. What about it? The fool? While Matt claims all the credit, who does the work? Dad, I'm done. Let Matt run your company. Anyhow, you don't need me. The last farewell. Dad's foot came in the way as I was about to shut the door. Traditional. You abandon this business. He said to me, you leave this family. Everything was really dramatic. As though we were seeing a terrible TV show, I gave him a direct look. Perhaps this is the ideal way for family members to treat one another. In response, I pushed the door so hard that my father had to move his foot. After a while of shouting and beating, he gave up and walked away. The fallout starts. The following day, Matt showed up. Before I phoned the police, I shouted through the door that he had to go, without even opening it. That was what he tried. Come on, dude. Avoid being like that. However, I didn't believe it. As though I were the issue, Mom called over and over again, sobbing about how I was destroying your father's heart and destroying the family. As though I was to blame for the 15 years of partiality and contempt. But what do you know? Never in my life have I felt so liberated. A fresh start. It was surprisingly simple to find a job. I had 3 interviews that first week, all with bigger, more reputable companies than my father's. They both made offers. I agreed to work for a rival company across town, Wilson Plumbing and Heating. Despite their small size, they are growing rapidly, and its owner, Dave Wilson, values hard work and expertise. This is a new idea, isn't it? Which aspect is the best? In writing, they offered me a partnership track. I'll have the opportunity to purchase stock and become a co-owner after 2 years. My father never thought to give me this as a present, even after I served for 15 years. In addition, they handed me a brand new Ford F-350 Super Duty commercial vehicle, better than what I lost to my father, fully loaded, complete with the company's emblem on the side. I made it a point to drive by my folks' house during my first week. Petty. Yes, it's satisfactory. Naturally, observing the breakdown of Taylor & Sons. In the meanwhile, without me, the Taylor & Sons business failed. Some of the plumbers have been texting me, and they were really kind men. Furthermore, these tales surpass any fantasies I would have had about retaliation. The first week, Dad tries to step in. While I was away, Dad attempted to manage things alone. The task hasn't been done by him in 15 years. He was unaware of the workings of my scheduling system. In the end, he planned 3 different crews for the same day. At the hospital, no one was accessible for an emergency call. I have personally overseen that sizable account for many years. They weren't happy. Matt gets promoted in the second week. Dad was in over his head, so he gave Matt responsibility for operations. Matthew, even scheduling his own dentist visits is beyond his memory. As expected, it was a total failure. One of the older plumbers, my friend Steve, claims that Matt consistently arrived late. He talked to Julie or his buddies on the phone most of the time, unable to respond to basic, work-specific inquiries. Due to Matt's failure to file the renewal documents, they completely lost one of our second-largest commercial contracts. The annual value of the account was $50,000. Lost. Matt was too preoccupied with sharing his daily activities, which include uploading photos from the gym. The dominoes continue to fall. They have had to call clients the night before to reschedule since the scheduling is so haphazard. Everyone is furious about this. In only 3 weeks, their internet ratings have fallen from 4.8 to 3. 2 stars. Blaming the new system is what that is, my system, not the idiots trying to operate it. The turmoil in the office. Because Matt persisted in holding her accountable for his shortcomings, one of the office staff quit. Because no one is sending out invoices on time, the amount of accounts receivable is mounting. I didn't anticipate it, but it was another thing I managed that nobody seemed to be aware of. To make ends meet, did Dad need to take out a short-term loan? Due to the fact that their financial flow is completely chaotic. The company was making a healthy profit 3 weeks ago, is having difficulty staying afloat at the moment. Julie, too. She apparently stays up late every night to keep everything running smoothly. However, she is not an operations specialist, rather, she is an office manager. She is capable of organizing files and taking phone calls all day, but she has no idea how to plan plumbing work or oversee a team of 15 plumbers with a range of skills and certifications. She was unaware of the situation she was in with my family. Have you used it to make your bed? The Taylor family disbands. Mom has been sending me more urgent messages all the time. In an attempt to organize the schedule, your father works 16-hour days. Despite his best efforts, Matt is unable to comprehend your system. 3 customers had to be informed that we would not be able to visit them this week. You'll notice that none of these communications include a sincere apology or acknowledgement of their mistakes. The traditional Taylor family, the breaking point of Dad. I only got one message from Dad. He spoke incoherently, as though he had been drinking. Before your advanced technologies, this business was okay, and it will continue to be fine after that. Do you believe that you cannot be replaced? Nobody is. Indeed, Father, as your business fails, keep reminding yourself of this. Matt's state of terror. Matt has moved past his fake brotherly care in his communications. Hello, my friend. Everyone is concerned for you. Panic that was scarcely concealed. Do you still have the scheduling software login? Dad is unable to locate it, to complete despair. Tell me how you managed the Henderson specifications, please, buddy. The manager of their project is going crazy. Julie's pathetic effort. Am I the only one who hasn't made many attempts to connect? Julie. About a week after my leave, she sent one email to my personal account. It was long and filled with apologies, saying that she had no intention of hurting me and that her relationship with Matt had just occurred. She naturally hoped that we would continue to be friends, almost as an afterthought at last. Could you perhaps write out how you manage scheduling if you have the time? We're experiencing some problems. I took it down without responding. Not my monkeys, not my circus, and the vehicle too. It seems to be making a strange noise. Matt dared to ask me to have a look at it. His last text message said as much. That should have been my pickup. The vehicle was presented to him as an engagement gift, but it was also a part of my advertising. I chuckled and removed it without responding. It's not my truck. It's not my issue. A fresh start at Wilson. In the meanwhile, after 2 weeks at Wilson, I feel as though I've stepped into another reality where skill is genuinely valued. Dave wants to know what I think about operations. Instead of being ignored, my suggestions are implemented. Not because I am the boss's son, but rather because of my experience. The staff values me. I completely redesigned their service call routing system yesterday. Dave immediately offered me a bonus since he was so impressed. A bonus for doing a good job. What an idea. A week or so after I started my new work, I met Kate. Kate is someone I met. When we were working on the plumbing for a new office building, I met this architect on the construction site. Astute, a humorous director, not engaging in any gaming. Julie is not like Kate at all. Kate is genuine. Julie, on the other hand, was usually well-groomed. She wears jeans and boots when she goes on dates. She calls me out on my foolishness in the most refreshing way and can discuss athletics just as easily as she does design. She is not a game player. What I want to hear is not expressed by her. Kate fulfills her commitments perfectly. It was our 3rd date. We hiked to a waterfall that I had wanted to visit for years on our 3rd date. Only 2 people who truly like each other's company. I showed her some of my family members' urgent texts. She only gave a head shake. They handled their gold as if it were dirt. My gain, their loss. She then gave me a kiss, and for the remainder of the day, I forgot all about the family business. For months, maybe. A fortuitous meeting. I saw them this past weekend while Kate and I were buying materials for my bathroom renovation at the hardware shop. Julia and Matt. Fantastic. My girlfriend and I were having a typical Saturday when Julie called out at us, and Kate clutched my hand. Matt spun around, looking as though he would rather to be someplace else. Hey dude. I didn't say much. Hello. Julie's eyes went first to Kate, then to our clasped hands. How are you? Excellent. Excellent. It's Kate. I measured her up and introduced them as Julie. The undisputed champion Kate shook their hands and smiled. 1. It's good to meet you two. You've been talked about a lot. Matt's face in a fright. Priceless. The issue with the truck. Julie asked about the materials we would need to renovate Ryan's bathroom. Kate clarified. The design is being handled by myself, an architect. An architect? It's impressive, Julie exclaimed, feeling suddenly uncomfortable. She works for my family's business as an office manager. I informed her. Why not give the knife a little twist? As it happens, the vehicle was the reason they were there. The one that kept making weird noises, you know. Naturally, Matt was clueless about how to solve it. The business truck was too strong for me to refuse, the one that should have been mine. Matt had the grace to seem ashamed. Yes, that one. He didn't feel bad about what he had done. Julie's regret? Sort of. Kate. An escape plan, complete with some made-up dinner engagements, was skillfully crafted by the ever-professional. As we turned to go, Julie paused. Please give me a time to myself. I nodded in response to Kate's query. She took my hand and walked away. I'd never seen Julie look that tight, but she groaned. The engagement, going slowly. Matt's, for translation. The firm was displaying its true colors. Without you, it wouldn't be the same. Apparently, they were still behind, even though they had brought on 2 people to take my position. Matt, has anything changed since you left? Yes. This will be achieved by working for the first time in his life. She pushed her hair behind her ear and moved nervously. I wanted to apologize for getting in the way of your relationship with your brother. I almost burst out laughing. I don't want to be rude, but you truly didn't understand since you're Julie. We are not the issue. You were only a sign of something far more serious. I've never been valued by my family. How about the truck? The final straw was that. She looked at Kate while chewing her lip. She seems like a kind person. Together you 2 look great. Yes, we are. Without hesitation, I said. She recognizes me as I am. Although Julie seemed to understand, I wasn't persuaded. She did. Anyway, I wasn't going to stay behind and explain Mom's last-ditch effort on the way home. My phone rang. I don't know why I replied, Mom. When I picked her up, she seemed stunned, but she quickly recovered and jumped right into the guilt trip. They are missing me. The company is struggling. Matt feels overburdened. Without me, Sunday dinners wouldn't be complete. As I waited for the inevitable request, I let her ramble. You ought to stop by soon. Perhaps we can work things out. For the foreseeable future, I will be occupied every Sunday. Keeping my voice low, I told her. Overhearing from the driver's seat, Kate grinned. Do you want me to tell you that? Or are you content to simply enjoy the Schadenfreude? I'm definitely basking. I grinned in response. No turning back. We watched a strange, true crime documentary later that evening, as we were stretched out on the couch. Kate gave me a glance. Do you ever see yourself returning to the family business? I didn't even have to consider it, not even a moment. She smiled, thrilled by the answer. What will happen with Taylor and Sons Plumbing is uncertain to me. Maybe they can work things out. Maybe they'll burn and crash. It's not my problem either way. What am I aware of? Moving on from people who don't value you, even if they are relatives, is sometimes the best course of action, particularly if they are relatives. I had to work in a corporate vehicle for 15 years before I realized this lesson. It's better late than never. I appreciate you watching. Please click the notification bell if you haven't already in order to receive updates on additional startling real-life stories that are happening in your area.